Welcome back. Some truths don't shout. They whisper in the quiet spaces between her words, in the delayed replies, in the moments where she looks right through you, but never at you. Today, we're not talking about the day she walks away. We're talking about the days before that. The days when her body is still here, but her soul has already left. The signs are subtle, almost invisible, but if you pay attention, they're everywhere. In this video, we'll uncover what most men overlook, the quiet signs of emotional detachment and what a Stoic man must do when love starts to slip into silence. Not to chase, not to fix, but to remember who he is. Because as Marcus Aurelius once said, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Let's begin. Now, comment below. I choose to see what's real, not what I wish to believe. 1. When her silence speaks louder than goodbye. There is a moment quiet, invisible, when a woman stops reaching for your soul. And you don't notice it at first, because it doesn't come with a door slamming shut or a screaming match at midnight. It comes in the form of a soft silence, a skipped question, a forgotten memory. She no longer asks how your day was. She forgets that story you told her just 2 nights ago, the one you shared with that glimmer in your eyes, hoping she'd see into your world. And when she looks at you now, it feels like she's looking past you, through you, as if your presence is fading into background noise in her mind. You try to brush it off. You tell yourself she's just tired, stressed, distracted. But what you're witnessing is not fatigue, it's emotional migration. Her attention, once so vividly locked on you, is drifting quietly but consistently. This is not about a missed dinner or a late reply. This is about something deeper, the slow withdrawal of emotional presence. And the tragedy, most men don't see it coming, because we're trained to look for action, anger, cheating, shouting, leaving. But long before the body goes, the heart often departs. And when a woman begins to pull away emotionally, she rarely announces it. Instead, she simply stops trying. She won't argue with you about your dreams. She won't cry if you forget an anniversary. She won't beg for connection. She'll just offer silence where there used to be laughter, distance where there used to be desire. This is the first sign. Not infidelity, not lies, but the absence of emotional attention. Psychologists call it attachment withdrawal, a subtle but significant shift where one partner begins emotionally detaching to avoid conflict, to protect themselves, or to prepare consciously or not for departure. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's confusion, sometimes it's boredom, sometimes it's the quiet buildup of unmet needs. But whatever the cause, the result is the same. Presence becomes absence. In Stoic philosophy, Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." But there is a deeper layer to this idea. Sometimes we don't suffer because we imagine too much. We suffer because we ignore what is real. We turn away from the truth in front of us, hoping if we pretend long enough, things will go back to how they were. But Stoicism demands more of you than denial. It demands courage, clarity, discipline. It teaches you not to chase what is slipping away, but to recognize when a chapter has ended. When her attention shifts, don't fight for it. Don't perform. Don't beg to be noticed. Because when you do that, you confirm something even more damaging, that your value depends on her gaze. And that is a betrayal of your own soul. A woman's emotional attention is precious, but it must be freely given, not earned through tricks or endless sacrifice. The man who understands this does not panic when the energy shifts. He observes, he reflects, and if necessary, he walks away with his dignity intact. You don't win her back by chasing. You don't reawaken attraction by overcompensating. You do it, if it's even still possible, by returning to yourself, by becoming the man you were when she first fell for you, full of purpose, stillness, and depth. The man who leads not by force, but by presence. Here is the truth no one wants to admit. A woman starts emotionally leaving long before she physically does, and if you're paying attention, you'll feel it. In the way her voice softens not with love but with apathy, in the way she touches you not to connect but out of routine, in the way she listens not to understand but to wait for her turn to speak or escape. So what do? You stop trying to get her attention, and you start paying attention to the signs. You let go of the fantasy that things will magically return to how they were. You acknowledge that emotional presence is not something you can force or fix. You remember, the Stoic man doesn't control her feelings, he controls his boundaries. Because if a woman can walk away from your soul while staying in your bed, you are not in a relationship, you are in a performance. And you deserve more than a role in someone else's fading script. Now is the time to reclaim your own script, so don't react. Reflect, and then choose. Choose to stay in your strength. Choose to return to your peace. Choose to honor the one relationship that always defines your power, the one between you and your mind. Because when emotional attention fades, it's not just a relationship changing, it's your test, your opportunity to lead with grace, not grasping. And sometimes the most powerful move is to stop talking and start listening to what's not being said, to what's been missing in her tone, to what your intuition has been whispering all along, that she's already gone, and the only thing left is your response. Now speak out and comment below. I don't chase emotion, I return to my peace. 2. The weight of small secrets. It never begins with betrayal. It begins with a glance too quick to catch. A phone turned over without a word. A casual, "I'll tell you later," that never comes. At first, you don't notice. Or maybe you notice, but you excuse it. After all, isn't everyone entitled to a little privacy? Yes, but there's a difference between privacy and partition. When a woman begins to hide the small things, the ordinary, the routine, the once invisible parts of her life, it's not just forgetfulness. It's not just independence. It's emotional compartmentalization. The birth of a separate world, one that doesn't include you. A new set of conversations you don't hear. A part of her day you're no longer invited into. A laugh you weren't part of. And worse, a silence that seems deliberate. You start to feel like a guest in your own relationship. And when you ask questions, not accusations, just curiosity, you're met with defensiveness, accusations of your own. Why are you so insecure? Don't be controlling. You always think the worst. Now the story has been rewritten. You are no longer the one observing a change. You are the problem. This, my friend, is gaslighting dressed as self-defense. In psychology, this manipulation isn't always malicious, but it is always damaging. It makes you doubt what your soul already knows. You feel the shift. You sense the wall. You know something's different. And yet she convinces you to question your own instincts. This is the moment a Stoic man must rise, not with confrontation, but with clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And if your thoughts are constantly clouded by doubt, self-blame, and confusion, you will become a man who walks through his life second-guessing every truth he sees. But you were not born for confusion. You were born for clarity. So let's be clear. A partner who begins hiding small things is not just keeping secrets, they are dividing their life into two parts. One that includes you and one that doesn't. And often that second part is where their future is already unfolding. It may not be another person. Sometimes it's a dream, a craving for escape, a desire to return to the version of themselves that existed before you. But whatever it is, it's pulling them away, and they don't want you to see it. Not because they hate you, but because they don't want to face what that truth means either. They are torn, so they protect the new life by lying to the old one. And your place. You become the observer, the outsider, The man who still shows up, still asks, still believes. But the answers you get aren't real anymore. And that's where the danger lies, not in the betrayal itself, but in your reaction to it. If you try to hold on tighter, if you try to force your way into the world she's hiding, you lose your power. You become the man who needs permission to see the truth. And that is not who you are. A Stoic man does not beg to be included. He watches, he listens, he sees the pattern, and then decides calmly whether this space still honors who he is. Because love built on secrets is not love, it is theater. So what's the solution? You stop playing your role in her act. You stop explaining your worth. You stop questioning your instincts, and instead, you return to yourself, to the man who can sit in silence and still feel strong, to the man who chooses clarity over comfort, to the man who understands that emotional connection cannot survive in darkness. Here's what most men don't realize. The moment she begins to divide her truth from you, she has already begun the process of emotional separation. It may take weeks or months for the full collapse to happen, but the seed was planted the first time she looked you in the eye and told a half-truth. So ask yourself, will you be the man who waits for the whole thing to fall apart? Or will you be the man who honors the first crack in the foundation and walks away with dignity? Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." And sometimes bravery means letting go, not out of bitterness, but because you deserve a love that doesn't live behind locked doors. So don't ignore the subtle secrecy. Don't numb the whisper of your gut. Don't rewrite reality just to feel chosen. Instead, stand firm in the one truth you can always trust: that your peace is worth more than someone else's comfort, that your clarity is worth more than her confusion, and that the man who sees the truth but stays quiet holds more power than the man who shouts in the dark begging to be seen. Now speak out and comment below. I trust my truth even when it's painful. 3. When touch no longer tells the truth. It used to feel electric. Her touch was warm, not just on your skin, but in your chest. It had meaning, memory, connection. But now it feels like someone else's hand, still soft, still familiar, but hollow like a song being played without the music behind it. This is one of the hardest signs for a man to accept, because physical intimacy has long been seen as the last bridge, the place where words no longer matter, where connection is restored. So when that changes, we hesitate to believe it's real. We say she's tired, stressed, hormonal, distracted, but deep down you know, something has shifted, and it's not just in frequency, it's in presence. A kiss without tension, a hug without weight, a night spent together that feels more like duty than desire, or sometimes it swings the other way. Sudden intensity, passionate in ways she never was before, almost like she's proving something. But even then you feel it, the dissonance between her body and her soul. Because intimacy, when it's real, feels safe. When it's broken, it feels like performance. So what does this mean? It means the emotional bridge has cracked, and the body is trying to compensate or conceal. This isn't about sex, it's about emotional transparency. When someone begins pulling away, they often do one of two things: withdraw completely or overcompensate to hide the truth. Both are red flags, not because they prove disloyalty, but because they signal detachment. And a man must learn to see through the veil. Too often we mistake touch for truth, but a woman can touch you while her heart is 1,000 miles away. She can lie in your arms while building a future in her mind that doesn't include you. And that, my friend, is the loneliness no one talks about. Stoicism teaches us to face discomfort with courage. Epictetus said, "It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our interpretation of them." But here's the thing, sometimes your interpretation is right. And the most courageous act is to listen to your own pain without denying it. In psychology, this dissonance is known as intimacy withdrawal, a breakdown of emotional safety that manifests in physical disconnection or compensatory behavior. When a woman no longer feels emotionally bonded, her body responds or overcompensates. This is not always conscious. In fact, most of the time it's instinctual, but that doesn't mean it isn't real. And here is where most men fail. They react to the symptom instead of the source. They push harder, become needier, ask for more affection, try to recreate the old magic. But you can't fake your way back into someone's heart. And the moment you try, you hand over your power. So what's the Stoic way? You observe. You don't accuse. You don't beg. You don't perform. You witness the shift, not with judgment, but with quiet awareness. And then you choose. Do I want a connection that is only skin deep? Do I want to fight for a touch that no longer tells the truth? Or do I want to walk away with the integrity of a man who listens not just to her, but to himself? Here's the truth most don't want to admit. Physical intimacy is not always a sign of love. Sometimes it's a distraction, a way to buy time, a final thread keeping the illusion alive. And that thread, it breaks the moment you stop needing it. Because the most magnetic thing a man can do in the face of disconnection is refuse to chase it. Instead, he returns to himself. He becomes whole again. He recognizes that a woman's touch should not be a test of his worth, but a reflection of mutual desire. And if that reflection fades, he lets it go. Not with anger, but with grace. Because a man who knows his own value doesn't beg to be wanted. He creates space for truth even if it hurts. And in that space, he becomes untouchable. So if her kiss feels hollow, let it be. If her hands hesitate, release them. If her body is present but her spirit is gone, do not try to hold what is already leaving. Choose presence over performance. Choose truth over touch. Choose dignity over desire. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Let's add one more. If it is not real, do not chase it, because your soul deserves more than skin without heart. Now speak out and comment below. I choose truth over touch. 4. When small arguments become storms. At first you thought it was stress. She snapped over a delayed text. She grew cold when you didn't respond fast enough. She rolled her eyes at a joke you've told a dozen times before. Once met with laughter, now with silence. You try to fix it. You ask what's wrong. She says, nothing. But it's not nothing. It's everything. Because what you're witnessing isn't conflict, it's emotional displacement. And here's what that means. The fire isn't about you, but you're standing in the burn zone. Her anger, her frustration, her sudden withdrawals. They aren't truly about the misplaced keys or a forgotten reply. They're about the growing chasm between her heart and yours. And you've become the placeholder for her guilt. This is one of the most confusing stages in emotional detachment. When a woman begins rewriting the story of the relationship, not because you failed, but because she needs a reason to leave without becoming the villain. And so she casts you in that role. You're too distracted. You never listen. You're always trying to control her. Words laced with truth, but bloated with distortion. You begin to question yourself. You over-apologize. You shrink. You try harder. And every time you do, she grows colder. Why? Because the story she's crafting needs tension. She needs the excuse, the justification. Psychology calls this cognitive dissonance, the discomfort of living in contradiction. She once loved you, now she's pulling away. But rather than facing that contradiction with honesty, her mind rewrites the narrative. You're the problem, not her detachment, not her emotional shift. You, and the worst part, you believe it. That's where Stoicism steps in. Seneca once wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity." for he is not permitted to prove himself. Here's your moment then, not to fight, not to argue, not to prove yourself right, but to stay centered while chaos rises around you. Because when someone begins projecting their turmoil onto you, the worst thing you can do is absorb it. You are not her emotional dumping ground. You are not her excuse. You are not the villain in her exit plan. You are the observer of the storm, not its fuel. And here's the shift that saves you. Instead of asking, why is she treating me this way? Ask, what truth is she hiding from herself? Because projection is not about punishment, it's about avoidance. She cannot face the fact that her feelings have changed. So she rewrites reality until she can leave guilt-free. But you don't have to play along. In fact, the more calmly you respond, the more silently you hold your ground, the faster the illusion collapses. It's hard because it feels unfair, because it is unfair, but fair is not the measure of truth. Truth is how you hold your character when everything around you is trying to redefine you. In moments like these, a Stoic man does not react. He reflects. He does not raise his voice to match hers. He lowers his heart to hear what's not being said. Because what's behind her accusations is not hatred, it's fear. Fear of the truth, fear of change, fear of losing control over the story. Let her feel that. Let her wrestle with it. You don't need to be the villain for her to leave, and you don't need to be the hero to stay. You just need to be the man who sees clearly, the man who chooses self-respect over performance, the man who knows that love built on blame is not love, it's dependency. And when that dependency ends, all that's left is a choice, yours. So next time she explodes over nothing, don't retreat, don't escalate, breathe, observe, respond with stillness. Let her drown in her own fiction, because eventually the truth always surfaces. And when it does, let it be her reflection she sees, not your reaction. Because that, my friend, is emotional freedom, and no amount of shouting can take it from you. Now, speak out and comment below. I refuse to carry the weight of someone else's guilt. This is not a story of heartbreak. It's a story of return to your wholeness, to your power, to your peace. So let this be the moment you stop asking, why did she leave, and start asking, what have I learned about who I am when I no longer chase what was fading? You are not a victim of her departure. You are the author of your next chapter. And it begins the moment you say, enough, enough wondering, enough waiting, enough weaving yourself into a future that never had your name written in ink. Today, you walk differently, you speak differently, you expect differently, not from bitterness, but from clarity, because true strength is not holding on, it's knowing when to let go. Now speak out and comment below. I choose clarity, I choose self-respect, I choose me. Conclusion: the power of seeing the quiet. Goodbye. You've seen the signs, you've heard the silence, and now you know. When she stops asking about your day, when her stories no longer include you, when her touch becomes distant or her arguments don't make sense, it's not random. It's a quiet goodbye. And the most powerful thing you can do is not beg her to stay. It's standing tall in the storm, walking away with your dignity, holding your truth like a sword, and cutting through the fog of false hope. Because a Stoic man knows, peace is not found in someone else's heart, it's built in his own. Welcome back to your power, and as you go forward, let this be the compass. I do not chase love, I become love. I protect my peace. Now speak out and comment below. I protect my peace, I protect my worth.